It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Tiller.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And welcome to the official Superhero Slate review of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever.
Yes, surprise, surprise, if you didn't know this, because I feel like some people don't know this, This is the end of Phase 4
for Marvel.
Yeah. So I think maybe towards the end of the review, when we get into spoilers, we'll probably maybe touch on Phase 4 as a whole a little bit, because we'll be in spoiler territory. We won't have to worry too much. And then, you know, if you're subscribed and you listen to our normal weekly news episodes, I would say probably within a few weeks, we'll probably dive into more of what Phase 4 was a little bit more, do some analysis, if you will. But yeah, this is the I don't want to say tip of the spear of Phase 4, because I feel like that denotes the beginning. So is this the butt of the spear, the electric butt of the spear?
It could be. There's also, I think, to be fair, although I think the ramifications are smaller, Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special as well. So for those thinking this is the last thing this year for Marvel, you're wrong. This is it. But I think
chronologically, year-wise, yes, it's not the last thing of the year, but I believe officially this caps off.
Nope, Guardians is Phase 4. But again, the Disney Plus one-offs things, I don't know if that holds weight here, right? I think it's kind of like how Ant-Man ended Phase 2, and I don't really think like that's really a fair assessment of Ant-Man, right? Like I'm like,
I guess we could use the word hard ends and soft ends. Of Guardians will be the
soft end,
I guess. Now I don't know. I don't like talking about hard and soft on podcasts. It makes me feel uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, we're here to really, make people squirm in their seats while they're listening to us. But yeah, we have gotten to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, probably one of the biggest question marks for movies coming out of Marvel in the past several years. I remember, again, we were there when it was announced in at San Diego Comic-Con in 2019, right? And when it was announced, it was an entirely different beast. The film they announced there is not the movie we saw this week due to the tragic and unexpected loss of Chadwick Boseman several years ago. So I think, this is something that everyone's kind of been wondering about and kind of wrapping their heads around how this is going to shape up, take place, and honestly move forward with that.
Yes, and just like we do all review episodes on the podcast, we're going to start with spoiler-free thoughts, and then we'll give you warnings before we jump into the spoilers, of course. But usually we like to pepper in a little bit of our movie-going experiences, because unfortunately we don't get to see movies in a vacuum pretty much ever, unless you get a chance to be at home. And even then, like, your phone's going off, and a dump truck could be driving down the road outside, so you're never absolutely in a vacuum. And I know Chris had a neighbor that he told me about, but so did I. Okay. I had a very, very tall and large man sit down next to me, which typically is not a problem. This could come in any shape and form, is a very loud mouth breather. So I had to listen to just pretty much the entire movie, and it was kind of maddening. Luckily, if there was an action scene going on, really something high intensity, it would drown it out. But this movie, unsurprisingly, is full of a lot of really dramatic, like, silent, touching moments, and even this man would catch himself of being, I'm breathing too loud with my mouth, which made it even more annoying, because I knew he could control it if he thought enough about it. But then he would just like let it go. So that, I feel like I've been on a lucky streak going to the movies the last couple of times, but unfortunately.
Did you hit him back? Did you blow some jalapenos or oh my gosh, back in his face?
I mean, he was massive in stature and everything. He could have crushed me, but I don't think it colored my movie experience too much, but I think people get a kick out of us going out into the real world. So, Chris, what about you?
Mine's a similar situation. A normal person sitting to the left of me. my wife to the right, and then we one of her friends, her colleagues, actually went with us. So we had a nice little group, and then to the left of me, this gentleman fell asleep during the movie several times, and he would start to do the mouth snoring, right? Like,
oh my God!
Like not like the full snore, but like a little bit. I'm like, so I would like resituate myself to like try to maybe see if I can move his seat a little bit, like to maybe jolt him awake a little bit. Again, I don't think it tainted my experience because, you know, until you really brought that up, I'd almost forgotten about it. But like, but like he like during, because there are some very, very dark scenes in this, not so dark that you couldn't see, but like the entire theater is dark, right? In this movie, there are also some very silent scenes in those dark moments. So, could totally see how if this person was tired, they would be able to fall asleep pretty easily. Now, I don't think that's indicative of the movie quality, you know, out the gate. I think this man was just very, very tired. Because I went to a 7 o'clock showing, not late, not early. Pretty standard fare here. I believe you had a 7 o'clock your time as well.
Yeah, I was at 7:30, but I will go to bat for this man and say if we knew the entire maybe experience of his life, because I have fallen asleep once during a movie, and it was due to jet lag. So we had just gotten back from an international flight, and I was very jet lagged, and I fell asleep during the movie. It was a very strange experience to wake up going like, where'd half the movie go? So maybe there's extenuating circumstances to this man.
I don't blame him. I think it's the snoring, the steady increase of volume as the snores were building as he kind of went to a deeper slumber. So hopefully I was able to knock him awake a couple times and you know, get him back going. But I think, again, very, very interesting experience. Now I will say the other thing in my theater, the Cinemark, which is the one we are currently going to, which is across the street, had a Black Panther statue light up popcorn bucket, Mike, and you know me, I love my Marvel movie popcorn containers.
These are getting so elaborate. Like, yeah. I feel like the research and development departments for these concession companies like had nothing but time during the pandemic and just dreamed up the most elaborate devices for holding snacks.
So half of it is the Black Panther statue, and then the other half is like a square purple bucket that lights up. And we got it actually without the popcorn because obviously you don't want to try to clean it later. But I think that light would annoy the hell out of somebody in the theater if you were trying to eat out of a glowing bucket.
Oh my God, you just reminded me of my traumatic. Another thing that drove me crazy is we were at the end of a row, which meant that we were close to those like safety running lights that run along the walking paths in the theater. And I don't know what was happening, but like 3 or 4 of those like little LED bulbs in that strip was like absolutely blinding. Like my wife had to strategically like place her legs and like purse to like block it. It was insane. Like I can't. Those little things drive me the most crazy because it's just like the most fundamental part of going to the movie theater is just lighting in general. And like there's just like one, and it's like even crazier when you know like you're like the only 2 people that are having that problem, you know, because the way it's like positioned. So traumatic experiences.
Well, and before we go, the other thing my wife got, they had color changing cups. I don't know if your theater had the color changing cups. So my wife was instantly on board with these. They are white and purple, and then when you put stuff in, they darken based on the coolness of the liquid. So she was very enthralled with that. So we have one of those now to the collection. So it was fun. They did have like a little merch cart in the movie theater like lobby. They were like, get your Black Panther blankets because you know the theater's cold, or T-shirts. I'm like, good Lord, they are really going all out for this stuff. So I think the overall. I like building my own home theater for this, but I'm glad to be able to watch it in the full theater experience. So, I think first things first, Mike, we always jump into the box office right before we get into spoilers. Let's just talk a little bit about this before we get into our reviews and stuff. So right now, this is as of like 5 minutes ago. This movie is looking to make $190 million opening weekend, which is nothing to scoff at, obviously. Had an $84 million first day. And this is, at this projection, it will be behind only Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness for this year. Which is surprising because I thought it would be more, but I guess I just don't remember Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what the legs are on it, right? That was the most memorable part about the box office story of the first Black Panther. Of it just had legs, man. It just went and went and went and kept making money, didn't stop, and it picked up steam. We'll see if this movie does the same thing. But yeah, I think we all knew that this movie was going to be successful, right? So not a big surprise here.
Yeah, no, not at all. I think that's really about. Like I said, I want to see what the total is. I think this really. I don't think there was any question if there would be a third movie, whether you watch the film or not. I think money wise, I think there will be based on the success, right? Like they're bringing in the money.
We already have I don't even quite remember if it's an official confirmation, but heavily implied that there's going to be a Wakanda series on Disney Plus. Yes. This franchise and the land of Wakanda is not going anywhere.
I believe there's a couple, and we'll talk about those in our regularly scheduled news episode that we'll record later, and you guys can listen to if you're subscribed to the show. But other than that, we've not really talked about this movie, Mike. We're recording this a day early. Thank you for doing that. This is my fault. But we can jump in here. Mike, I'm going to go ahead and let you have the floor to tell the council here what you thought of Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, well, if I had to quote Robin from the Teen Titans, I would say I'm satisfactorily whelmed. I wish I could have more kind of a raving review of the movie, but I just kind of thought it was okay. I felt like it filled the time. I left the movie with a new experience, but it's just so strange. I feel like with a movie with such a dramatic plot and real life world, bearing down on the movie with its own consequences, that I feel like I left the movie theater maybe less gripped than I wanted to be, right? This film deals heavily with themes of, loss and family and trauma. And you might even be able to say that those themes translate over to the entirety of Phase 4 for Marvel as well. But I just kind of felt like I saw a movie that was maybe a little too long, with maybe characters that I wish were slightly more likable. It's weird. It sounds like I'm really bearing down on this movie, but overall, there's things I absolutely loved about this movie. I love the addition of Namor. I love the backstory and plot that they added to the character. I thought some of the new lore that they've added to this additional realm of the MCU worked really, really well for me. I loved going back to Wakanda as well. Anytime I got to see exterior shots or little communities inside of Wakanda, I was just screw Avengers Campus at Disney World. Rip out those industrial warehouse structures. Make the Marvel land at the Disney parks, Wakanda.
The Wakanda section, yeah.
So much more visually interesting. So I loved it whenever we were doing all of that. But yeah, it just kind of felt a little disjointed. And we'll never truly know exactly what the movie was supposed to be if we were fortunate enough to have Chadwick around. But yeah, I feel like I'm still kind of processing the movie in my head, and I'm sure we'll get into it when we talk about spoilers, and maybe the things will rattle out and stick a little bit more. But yeah, I just kind of felt like it was okay. I was, monitoring the reviews over the last couple of days. I think it was when I first saw kind of the first reviews coming out, I think it was sitting around an 80%-ish on Rotten Tomatoes. I looked, I think maybe on Thursday night, Friday morning, it had jumped up to 95%, and now it seems like it's settled down more in the mid 80s. So it seems like it's still trying to find its critical approval, and even the audience score has jumped around as well. So yeah, I feel like maybe I'm not the only one that's alone trying to figure out where exactly this movie sits with them. But yeah, it's a weird combinations of things I liked and things I thought were just okay. I was able to rewatch the first Black Panther just a few hours before I went and saw this one, and then I even clicked through Infinity War and Endgame to see all of the different Chadwick parts. I just kind of wanted to just revisit the character and as much as the world as I could. So I was primed and I was ready to go back, and I think we talked about on our news episodes as well that we were eagerly anticipating this movie as well. And I don't know, maybe my expectations were too high, but yeah, overall it's a good movie, right? But I think it just didn't quite reach where I was hoping it would be. So, Chris, what do you think, spoiler free, about Wakanda Forever?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be better probably than you. It's hard for me to say, is this the best Phase 4 film, right? When you compare that way, because it's different. This is a different superhero movie. There's a lot in here that I would say is weighty, like very weighty, for a film of a superhero film, right? We have serious, tones in other movies. It's similar to like Civil War, the Captain America movies, Infinity War, Endgame, very, very heavy, all about, death and trauma. And this movie, has a lot, there's just a lot on it. And I think maybe the weight of that added on to the weight of what this story is saying can make you feel probably like this is not a normal superhero film. This is not something, this is, again, not Spider-Man. This is not Doctor Strange, or even, I would say, it's quite the opposite of Thor Ragnarok we saw, just a couple months ago.
Oh, entirely. This is like the antithesis of Ragnarok.
Yeah, and not to say Ragnarok didn't deal with death and loss, but I think, it took it in one way, and this takes, that grief in another way. But like, it is hard to, I agree, it's hard to say what is this movie, what does it do? I believe it does a really, really good job. You don't get something this, I would say, impactful and emotional in a movie with this kind of budget, right? Like, they're like, hey, you're coming to see this movie, you're going to get action scenes, you're going to get quips, and you're going to be entertained the whole way. There are some very, and for lack of a better term, atmospheric moments in this, right? Where it is just sound, like it's just natural sound, right? And silence, and you've got to sit there. You're with the characters on screen. You're feeling what they're feeling. You're processing yourself. So it's not like a normal movie like you would go out and see. Like, hey, this is a Marvel movie. They spend a lot of money. You're going to be entertained the whole time. No, there's a roller coaster of emotions in this film, wholeheartedly. I can't say I personally shed tears, but I can tell you there are people in the audience, obviously, who feel that way, who cried with the characters. There are laughs, there are actions, there are some hell yeah moments. There was an applause, even two applause, one at the end of the movie, one in the movie. So I think there's a roller coaster of emotions in this movie. I don't know if I would agree that it's too long. I think it needed more. If I could be completely honest, I wouldn't say a longer movie, but I think it needs maybe a part 1 and a part 2 of this, because to me, what other kind of my complaints about some of the Marvel TV shows, the end of it just kind of happens, and you're like, okay, well, this is the end now, and they had to wrap it up because obviously we're running out of time to show movies. We can't drag this on forever. So I think it ends almost too quickly and too neatly for me to be like, I absolutely loved how it ended. But throughout the whole journey, it isn't. I would say it's not an easy watch, right? I think there are some things you're like, why are these people being this way? But when you step back and think about what some of them, the characters, and maybe even the actors themselves were going through during this production, it's not. I kind of understand them a little more, and I'm trying to be as vague as possible because there's a lot of stuff in this that you don't see in the trailers, and I tried to go in as blind as possible, right? You did the same, so. Yeah. It's hard to be very specific about things when I want to talk about them. I think there's some, in honor of, I guess, how does it handle the loss, the passing of Chadwick Boseman? I think it's a beautiful passing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say it was a little bit of a needle to thread, right? I was very curious on that. How exactly are they going to explain this narratively in the story? Is it going to be respectful? How is it going to motivate the characters moving forward? And I would say all of those. I would say almost every decision that was made for this movie was the right decision for sure. So I will definitely give 100% credit for that. Yeah, they handled a very tragic moment very, very well, and with a lot of grace. So I mean, do you think maybe now we can jump into spoilers so we don't have to kind of tiptoe around?
I think so. And like I said just before we get in, I would not envy anyone at the helm of this movie or making those decisions, right? Like, those are things like again, everyone's like, do you recast? Do you go on? What do you do in this situation? And I don't envy the decisions that they had to make to get there, right? Because they definitely didn't do this in their sleep or overnight. But I think we can both agree, like, it is a very beautiful passing of the torch to this new Wakanda overall. And we'll get into reviews in a second. So if you've not seen this movie, now is your time to go watch it. Go check it out in theaters, or pause here, come back, listen to full spoilers going forward into this. So I think just out the gate, because I've thought about this, the intro scene, the Marvel logo with all of T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman stuff being in there,
sucked all of the air out of my theater. Oh my gosh. Like, usually even when the scenes are quiet at the beginning of the movie, you hear people like shuffling around, or there's like a little bit going on in the theater. Man, you could hear a pin drop.
Yes.
And they did something similar, I believe, when Stan Lee passed as well. I don't remember what movie that was
Captain Marvel.
to.
It was Captain Marvel.
Okay.
And I think that one, at least, did that had some music or something to it as well? Like, this just had natural sound, like nothing else other than like it's hard to explain. It was just like if someone recorded in an empty room and played it under it. So like you said, it's quiet but not fully quiet, but nobody moved, nobody said a word, nobody was crinkling their snacks during this moment, and it was very much everyone in solidarity for that moment of silence at the beginning.
And the only time we ever saw like a new depiction of Chadwick in the movie was the mural that's painted on the wall at the beginning of the film. We do see some flashes to other footage from other films when I think Shuri is kind of thinking about her brother. I think it happens in the third act, if I remember correctly.
Maybe into the second, beginning of the third, kind of.
Yeah. So they made the right call. I'm sure a lot of people in the back of their head were thinking, oh, are they going to do some of that Disney stuff where they do some sort of CG Chadwick? And we don't know. I mean, it is one of those unfortunate circumstances that is coming. So there's always a chance that maybe Chadwick wanted to appear in it. So there could have been a line item somewhere in a contract. But I feel like the decision that was made that was great. They kind of, for lack of a better term, peeled the Band-Aid off very quickly at the beginning of the movie. They're like in it. We like hear like Shuri's distressed voice before the footage even starts to roll on a black screen, trying to save her brother. It goes very, very quickly, and then that pretty much is propelling our characters through the entire film is the loss of T'Challa, which is the most logical decision to move this story. And, I mean, you don't lose a character of that magnitude and don't make it your entire film. Yeah,
and I think the point of that also is like the nation is recovering and they're doing fine, and even Queen Ramonda is doing, she's lost her husband, right? She's lost people before, so she's handling it well. But Shuri is the opposite spectrum of that, and that drives a lot of her actions, which I think you said, some of the characters are very unlikable, and she goes through some very unlikable moments in this movie. But I think it's based on her emotions and you got to think about it a little bit, but like in the moment you're like, oh, that's dumb. That's really dumb.
And I mean, I don't know what it is. Maybe I just can't pull some of my real world opinions away from Letitia Wright as a person in the real world. But I could say, unequivocally that she is a very, very good actor. I mean, she was emotionally powerful on screen. I could feel that she was Shuri and dealing with the loss of her brother. But I don't know, even with all of that, I don't know what it is about the character that I'm not really drawn to. I don't really like all that much. And maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just the transition of her character just like being very quirky and snarky and not exactly at the front of the line in the earlier movies, and then now she has to be thrust into this position of power. I don't know. I mean, it's weird because it's like even the movie gets it. Like it's rushed. She's supposed to be just like the technology princess, and now she's being put into boots that she's not ready to fill. But I don't know. It's just a strange feeling. I wish I just enjoyed the character more.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe we'll be able to grow into it as we move forward. But yeah, I wasn't really super excited when I saw Shuri on screen. I was more excited when I got to see characters like Okoye or Namor or M'Baku. Yeah. Those were like the characters that I was like really excited to see.
And I think it's her journey, right? Like, you know, she didn't have a 3-movie journey. She's kind of got a movie journey, like to go from like, on the, you know, again, you watch the first one. She's like, she saw her brother. She flipped him off in the first movie, like within the first 2 seconds of her being there. You're like, okay, she's a child. She's got intelligence, but she doesn't have decorum. She doesn't know how to work with the council. She doesn't care really, right? Like she's very, I guess I would say hyper focused, maybe, and that doesn't really pull a lot of it. I didn't mind her so much, like when she was trying to be that leader. Whenever she is in Talokan with Namor, right, in the suit and kind of going through and like talking to him and they're having conversations. I didn't mind those parts as much as that. But I think, you know, it is, you know, the kind of how I mentioned the movie just kind of ended. It was one of those things like she has to hurry and grow up a little bit right within like 2 seconds. And I'm like, it's very fast. It didn't feel as earned. But I want to, you know, just so, you know, we say here, there was no doubt Shuri was ever going to be the Black Panther. I don't think anyone ever questioned that she was going to be under the suit, right? Like, I felt like that was like everyone knew that.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing that I feel like was reinforced when I went back and watched the original Black Panther, like even though the mantle of Black Panther is very sacred, the very first thing you see in the first film is that it can kind of easily be transferred to another person. It is basically a combination of a flower and a suit, and it seems like the movies have kind of been evolving the lore a little bit of that purple flower, because in the first film that flower is supposed to give you the strength of the Black Panther, but in the context of the scenes that we see early on in the franchise, it seems like it's just kind of giving you heightened senses, right? It's not making you a super soldier, it's just kind of making you probably more aerobic, maybe have heightened reaction and stuff like that. It's the suit that's kind of really giving you those superhuman abilities. That's at least how I perceive it.
I mean, I disagree, because I think the suit was more of a defensive thing, right? Because, you know, if that was the case, they would make that vibranium suit for every one of their warriors, I think, in Wakanda, if that was the case. Because even Shuri, like, once she drank the herb and came back, she was able to punch that suit across the thing a little bit there. So either way, I mean, I guess I'm glad they stuck to the fact, like, they couldn't remake it easily, right? Like, I thought they could be like, oh, well, we found some more seeds and we brought back the Black Panther. But I think that ties into what we can talk about more about Namor in a second. I'll let you finish up there.
Yeah, I was gonna I feel like the 3D printing of a flower, you know, it's not that big of a deal to me, but I felt like it was a little almost too much of an easy way out in a way. I really liked how Killmonger just like burned them all in the first film. It felt just like so final. It made the lineage of the Black Panther feel so much more at risk. So and I guess really they probably could have moved forward with that idea if Chadwick was still with us. But I guess they're kind of like, oh, if we knew that this would have happened, we probably wouldn't have burned all of those flowers. So
they had to solve a problem they didn't have when they first did it. And
and even though I don't know, maybe one day in the future you could like 3D print something organic like that. To me, it just felt like a little too far-fetched in a way of like, I know Wakanda is like very, very technologically advanced, but I was just kind of like, oh, we're 3D printing flowers. I don't know but that was just a little bit of a pet peeve. It didn't really distract me all that much.
Yeah. So the other big thing in this movie is obviously the introduction of Namor and the Talokans, or Atlanteans if you're in the comic books.
Chris, I think you mean Namor.
Yes.
With a very sensual voice attached to it.
Very, very much, again, Spanish, the Niño Sin Amor, the child without love, is where he got his name from, which makes no sense that the other girl's name was Namora. I'm like, you gave him a great name, but why does she have Namora? That doesn't make any sense, but it's whatever. I feel this is where I wish the movie could have been longer. I wish we would have had more of them and their culture and like that city, because I think it's really cool, but it felt very short.
I will solve your problem. If you want more time with these, I'm just going to call them Atlanteans because I don't remember exactly. I don't remember exactly what. Talokans?
Yeah, okay. Talokan is the name of the city, so yeah.
All right, if we wanted more time with these Talokans, throw entirely out the Martin Freeman CIA plotline. It didn't matter. It had almost no consequence.
This is where it's fun because this has the biggest consequence going forward.
Well, going forward, but it felt so much like, oh, we just need this here to build up, the next movie, the next bit of the next phases. Yeah. Like, it just didn't need to be in this film. I liked Martin Freeman's addition to the first movie, but there was better ways you could have added him to the film. So, throw him out entirely. Make him like a post-credit scene or something like that, and then just give me more Namor.
Phase 5, and then possibly the introduction of Doctor Doom will deal with his and obviously director Valentina Val's thing. This is going to go to a war with Wakanda. I believe this will either wrap up Phase 5 or possibly Phase 6. I think this is the Thunderbolts movie we've been promised will be with Wakanda somehow, some way. Don't know how they're going to work that out yet, but I'm pretty sure it does. But I don't think, honestly, the small minutes they had was fine. I think there's so much more with Namor. Like, I appreciate that he just popped up out of the water, right? Like, when we meet him the first time, they didn't, like, it wasn't like a subtle introduction. They literally just popped up, and he's like, I'm here, here's your thing, whatever. The Vibranium, but I'm also like, kind of like, they're like, okay, go get the person who created this, who technically didn't create it. The government had it look like, right? So I'm like, why would he just go after the government and not this child? But then they found the child as well. It was very convenient to fight, or to find and fight Riri Williams in Boston, right? This thing. I would say this is a pretty sloppy part of the movie overall, even though I don't necessarily think the idea is bad overall. I think the idea, because the whole time we were thinking, heading up to this movie, how do these, underwater people get pissed off at the surface world? Because that always seems to be the plot line for these underwater cities, no matter what comic book or mythical world that you're in, right? They got to get pissed off at the surface world. How are we going to do it? So I actually liked the idea that they also had Vibranium, and Vibranium is the reason why they were able to physically change. I feel like that's a very good explanation because that is very much an important thing for me in the MCU. If you're going to bring somebody magical or super powered into this universe, please give me a rock solid foundation of why they are there. And he's officially a mutant. They call him a mutant. I would say I would give him more mutantdom than Kamala Khan because it was more of a question. But I'm glad they did give him the mutant background.
And even his mutant powers were kind of explained kind of in a way of just like, well, his birth was special, right? Yeah. He was inside of his mother when she drank that. So it's almost like that explains the mutation more of just like, oh, there's an X gene out there, floating around in the population. Yeah. So I like the idea that this is just what does another city look like? This is almost like a controlled experiment. This isolated world gets vibranium and this world on the surface gets vibranium. I really liked that contrast to it. So it makes sense that, they built it up that the world wants vibranium. It's a very important metal. It doesn't scan on metal detectors. It's very, very powerful. So it makes sense that these other nations would be striving and looking for it. So I thought it was pretty funny that they cast, what's her name? Lake Bell?
Yeah, Lake Bell, Poison Ivy voice in the Harley Quinn show.
Yeah, she's a fairly famous actor, and I was surprised that they dispatched her so quickly. I was like, oh wow, they're adding Lake Bell to the MCU, and then as soon as I finished that thought, like, no, she's dead. So I thought that was pretty hilarious.
I did think it was a good introduction of Namor to show he flies, so he can grab a helicopter and literally throw it back at the ship, kind of like as strong as the Hulk or the Thor would be, right? Kind of in the situation.
To set him up he was in that really dark silhouette too, so just this ominous like man like floating in the sky. I thought was really, really cool. But going back to your point of this vibranium detector, I don't think I necessarily needed an in-universe explanation of how this thing got made, right? Mm-hmm. I flash back to the very first Avengers when they're trying to track. Are they trying to track Loki or something like that? So they're looking for a specific like
gamma signature
that's like coming off a stone. So like they've already built the idea in that like finding rare things in the world isn't like you don't have to go out of your way to do it. And then I didn't really understand. Okay, if it is like, why did it have to specifically be Riri? Like, I understand she's smart and intelligent, and she made it as a science fair project, but she almost seemed surprised that the U.S. government even had the technology. So how secret is it? And what's hardest for me to believe is that like the U.S. government can co-opt the technology but they can't make it again on their own. They have to get Riri to like build them more. Or so it didn't make any. Because like the cat was already out of the bag as soon as she built it. She shouldn't have been the crux, and that was the thing. They made her. She was the inflection point for like these two worlds crossing, and that felt like the weakest point. She shouldn't have been in the middle.
Yeah, I agree. I think nothing against the actress who played Riri Williams or her character. I actually really enjoyed her as a character. I think she was really fun and very smart. Right, I think she's going to be fantastic going forward.
Yeah. But she brought some much needed levity to the movie as well, because even though we are dealing with very serious themes and issues, I'm still going to a superhero movie, so occasionally I need to be reminded that we're allowed to have fun in the theater.
Exactly, and I think showing she's smart, she knows how to make a suit, and she can't take it with her, so that's why she's going to build her own for her own show. Totally fine, get it, understand. But I think the better choice, and again, hindsight's always 20/20 when we do this. When we look at these movies, is it would have been better if the Wakanda was trying to protect another nation from Namor attacking, right? Hey, look, that would have put them in the crosshairs of each other. You can either protect these people who are hunting for Vibranium and are coming after you next because we know they are, or you're against us and we will come after you like they did in the movie, right? I think the child who made this, who didn't know she was making it for the government, is entirely irrelevant. You're no, that's the dumbest thing ever. I've ever. I wouldn't say the dumbest. It's the most nonsensical decision in this movie, next to Ramonda taking Okoye and taking her position away because she was she was blindsided by Atlanteans on a bridge.
It's like that's not that girl's fault. Yeah. And also, I have to say, I don't know if this is a far out there opinion, because I didn't know it didn't work really well with the Star Wars prequels, but I would love to see the MCU lean more into geopolitical politics, because I just find it very interesting. Obviously get somebody that can handle the story with some real insight to how these different nation states could work. But I was getting very interested to see Wakanda is very, very powerful. They're showing up to these UN meetings with these bad guys in chains and cuffs and everything, and then the whole idea of what would it the only good thing I liked about the CIA plotline is when Martin Freeman and Julie Louis-Dreyfus talked about what if the United States happened to be sitting on top of Vibranium, the world would be totally different. I was I love this idea. It's like with great power comes great responsibility for the state of Wakanda. So I love that idea. So I'd love to see that more going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe, and I fully think New World Order and probably also more Thunderbolts are going to get there for you, right? I think those are very politically charged films with their titles. I would say, there's so many great things to talk about this. I want to say one more bad thing. I didn't care for the ending battle on the boat.
For a movie that's taking such a unique kind of perspective on the MCU formula, right, to really lean into this this trauma and loss, to just end in a very unremarkable third act battle. I mean, even the design of the boat wasn't very cool. It didn't really look like anything. It looked like somebody took an old stainless steel iron, right, and just put it in the ocean and flipped it upside down. I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just a lot of action. Of course, there's a lot of people back and forth. There were people and Atlanteans and Wakandans dying back and forth, but you didn't really see any of them dying. You didn't really see a lot of it, right? It was kind of very just generic battle across it, while the real fight was going on. I think it was very impactful when Shuri did rip off the wings of Namor's feet. I was like, oh, this is getting brutal over here. I think that battle was way more interesting, but I think how it ended, obviously, and then they just showed up and okay, everybody stop fighting, was really that's that abruptness I was talking about. I'm like, oh, this just means they have to end this movie, and this is how they did it.
And it's almost one of those things where it's a trope that I usually don't like in movies, but kind of presented to us in a different way, of the hive mind type of situation where oh, we can defeat this entire swarm of bots or alien as long as we destroy the hive mind, right? The leader, the queen. And that's basically what Namor was like. Oh, if we just get Namor to call off the troops, all of this drama will be over. So it felt like a little convenient. And also they have to kind of do this weird thing in the third act where we know Namor is kind of supposed to be this. I don't want to say like lawful evil. I'm trying to think where he lands on the on that D&D chart, right? But we know he's not supposed to be just like a pure madman.
He's like lawful neutral, I would say.
Yeah, and we've also visited his people, and we've seen that these are just like normal living lives that just happen to be located under the water. Yep. So you can't show like vicious bloodshed, right? Otherwise, you're just like getting way too dark for the movie. So you have to do a lot of things like, oh, if they're getting stabbed with the spear, right? We can't show it right away. There's got to be lots of like punching and people flipping off the boat. Yeah. You know, we can't just show like really and what we want to see. And that's actually kind of what happens in the first film as well, right? You know, when T'Challa returns to Wakanda and Killmonger is controlling the troops, he's just like, well, I can't kill these people that I'm going to potentially try to get, you know, rule back for, you know, so I guess kind of like push them off to the side, like throw them off screen or whatever. So yeah, it makes it just a little less exciting.
Yeah, and at that point though, of a movie so heavy, to just have a generic action scene was I would say not a disappointment, but just kind of like an
yeah,
like, okay, I get it, I know it, it's fine, but like you could have done better at the end of this.
Well, and to just keep, you know, talking about action scenes in general, I thought the second act action scene of when they attack Wakanda way more entertaining, right? Because first we get to see more of Wakanda, which I've been begging to see more of. It's so interesting and visually unique to everything else in the MCU. So I loved it when we actually get to go there on the ground and see them trying to save the citizens and like get reminded that this is a real place. And it was really, I love seeing the physicality of Namor in general, right? He doesn't just fly with his little wings too. He kind of does like these little air jumps.
No, he's juking all over the place, man.
Yeah,
he's
like juking. Right. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. He is that cell phone back in the day, the juke, that little thing that looked like a pack of gum that flipped open. He is that phone indeed. And I loved it. And he was very powerful too. So, you know, like he could take on any dragonfly looking like ship that he comes across. Yeah. So, and when he gets underwater too, he's like moving around like a freaking missile. So he's awesome to see. That I liked some of the slow-mo ramping scenes were cool. Like when he punched M'Baku and it broke his armor.
Winston Duke was a charm the entire movie. He came in, his first presence was him chomping on a fucking beef jerky stick at the council. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Oh, Chris, I must correct you. It was indeed a carrot because they are vegetarians. If you don't remember the line from the first movie, they are, because remember he threatens.
It's impossible beef jerky, Mike. You just told me about this like 30 minutes ago.
Because he threatens to eat Martin Freeman in like the first movie. He's like, oh, don't worry, we're vegetarians. Yeah. But so are we to assume that he is the ruler of Wakanda now at the end of the movie?
I think
he goes for a challenge.
I think they're gonna do kind of how Black Panther, I guess Civil War was, right? There's a leader of Wakanda and then a Black Panther of Wakanda. They are not one and the same. It looked like going forward.
Yeah, but M'Baku is great. He's just like, he's like kind of like the perfect example of an MCU character, right? Where he can be serious and really mean what he says, but also he can kind of get those laughs out there to the audience, right? He can really it's just like a very entertaining character through and through. So I'm glad M'Baku made it through to the end of the movie.
Yeah, and he's also had a really a good journey as a character, right? When you meet him, he's like, the Jabari, we're going to challenge you. I want to lead, right? You've opened us up to the outside people and who we are. That's not the way of Wakanda. And then he's coming.
They're very isolationist.
Yeah, and he's like, hey, people, you can come stay with the Jabari because there's no water up here, kind of thing. So I think his journey as a character has been fantastic. Again, not to mention Nakia, Okoye, even Ramonda. I had heard that she probably wouldn't make it through the movie if I was like going to be like, they weren't only going to have I guess of the family of four, only one person remains, right? Of the T'Chaka, Ramonda, T'Challa, and only Shuri remains out of this. I would say while it was very, very cool to see Michael B. Jordan show up as Killmonger again, I am disappointed they did not bring back T'Chaka, or the actor who played her father, and only had her mother, right? Because like that actor's still alive. Like he was the Black Panther. He's been in the ancestral plane. He is important to this family. I don't know why they just kind of wrote him off when there was an opportunity to have both him and her mother kind of be there together.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe it was just opening up a can of worms that they weren't ready to touch, right? In a sense of like, well, if you bring back the mother and father, there's no reason that T'Challa wouldn't also kind of be in that family lineup advising her. So maybe this, and I felt like it felt correct emotionally wise, because she was very much being driven by revenge, and that was very much what Killmonger was driven by.
I think it was great to be there. I do
agree. Yeah. Like, I wanted her to have that cathartic moment though, where she did get to see her mom again, and they kind of did a weird thing where they kind of
flashed
cut to it. Yeah, but like canonically,
it didn't feel
we don't really know what that means either. Yeah. Like, we were the rules were set very much in motion that you have to like physically, or I guess like mentally, go to the ancestral plane through a ritual in order to kind of communicate with the ancestors. You don't just to get to like flash to it in your brain. So it almost just kind of felt like, oh, we want this emotional connection, but we can't, bury her and have her eat the flower again. So that was a little bit of just kind of like, oh,
it was convenient for the plot in the moment, right? And that, I think, again, sums up some of the third act. It's convenient for the plot in the moment because we have to move this forward and have to wrap it up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, I feel like we've been negative, but I really do think this movie did a great job with the weight that it had to carry and how impactful it really was on myself and the audience as a whole, because again, like I said earlier, I don't envy anyone who was in this movie or had to do this, but they had to make some decisions that were not easy and definitely not clean due to what they were dealing with.
I mean, I guess I can put it this way. I can very easily point to specific things in the movie that I loved. It's very easy for me to do. An example of like Namor. Everything Namor from top to bottom, I loved Namor. But everything else that maybe I didn't enjoy a whole lot about the movie, or I thought was less than, it's just kind of more of like feelings or vibes or just kind of general ideas, which makes it a little bit harder to form my opinion, which is kind of why I just kind of lead to like, maybe this is kind of like a maybe one of the better second tier movies is how maybe I would kind of organize it in my head if I had to kind of classify Marvel movies into different tiers.
This one's going to be hard to put a ranking on. Like I can't. It's like, if you look at it from a pure action scene, right, and like superhero portions, not very good, right? Like it's not the best one out there, but like as a film and what it tells us and what it does, again, the idea of grief and loss, which it doubles down on at the end of the second act, right, with the loss of Queen Ramonda, like it's very much a weighty film, like I feel it's hard to even process it still. Like you mentioned at the start of the show, because I just don't even know what to think about it, because there's good things in this, there's great things in this, like real emotion, real how people would react in these situations, but also we're in a comparing it to superhero movies, it's fine. It's fine in the realm of what it exists in.
Yeah, I mean, if I'll touch on like one last thing that in general that I didn't like, and then I think maybe we can go on and maybe talk about the post credit scene, which I actually enjoyed, of kind of where they're going to maybe take the movie franchise moving forward. But it felt like they were maybe trying to push another theme in this movie of progress and moving forward and possibly embracing technology, because the idea of embracing technology embraces Shuri, the creator of it. And they very much go out of their way to show this, like, what is it, Midnight Angel? Is that what the suit was called?
Yeah, and that is a comics accurate, as I guess separate, Black Ops version of the Dora Milaje.
Yeah, and they do go out of their way to say in the film at the beginning that Okoye does not like the way it looks, and I was like, I agree with you, girl. That thing looks strange. I saw some people online that say it looks like a crossover between like the Predator because it has kind of like some kind of braid looking materials behind it, and I don't know, something else going on with those eyes all the way to the side. Right, so we have those, which are essentially like mech suits. They could like fly. They were essentially like Iron Man armor technology. And then you also have Riri Williams' character, who has her highly polished Wakanda version of her armor. So I was just like, at the end in the third act, I was like, okay, I'm getting like mechanical suits. I'm getting this now. We have a Black Panther suit as well. I don't know. It just felt strange. I was just like, what there's this weird injection of technology that it feels like it's only here to sell toys almost in a way. Like I got like almost like a cynical vibe of it. Like, I feel like if we're going to go out of our way to put Riri Williams in this movie, Ironheart with her suit, we definitely don't need the Midnight Angel suit in here. That just felt unnecessary.
I'm gonna lean away from like here to sell toys. I don't think when they did it was there. I think it was just a way to be like, look, you're dealing with, again, they wrote the Atlanteans are much stronger, right, than the humans. They go out of their way to show us that, and like we need to level the playing field a bit. And while it is not necessarily, they're not visually appealing, I do see the design, like the African design and the teal, the patterns. I would say, despite people mentioning calling it the Predator stuff, I think that's part of literally like the braids of the culture. So I disagree, but also, knowing the comic books, knowing that that's a part of a team, a Black Ops team, it looks more like a Black Ops suit. Now, I'm also going to say I think there is a B plot or maybe even C plot of like tradition, right, versus technology, because they kept saying like you're not traditional, you're not following the rituals, right, to Shuri, because she's younger, right, than that her ideas, build more technology. She has these gifts to be smart and use the technology, and how can she, going forward, I think that's probably why she's not the leader, right, and that's why M'Baku is leader, because he follows tradition, he understands the culture, and she's very much the, I guess, chief scientist, if you will, of the country. So I think that kind of lost maybe some of its weight, some of its clarity throughout, but I definitely know, I can see what they were doing with both of those things. Like she doesn't care. She didn't even believe in the realm, the spirit realm, right, when she went there. That's what they said. So I think there's some growth with that. But I think let's go into the end here. Mm-hmm. The extra, the mid-credit scene, because there is no after the movie scene. There's only one scene, and it's after the credits. It's it's an extended scene, but I think it's also hard to call it a mid-credit scene, because it literally picks up the frame after the movie ends as well.
It was almost like we got a little commercial break at the very end to see the credits, and then they just kept the reel rolling.
Yeah, so this it takes Shuri to Haiti, where Nakia is living and teaching, right, doing her outreach, which she's been shown to do in the films, and she's introduced to T'Challa, Prince T'Challa, son of our T'Challa, which is kind of saying, I guess I wouldn't say president. I guess it would be the only family Shuri has left, right? That she knows about, so that's important. But also the ability, I think, to, if they age up this child, they could have a younger son of T'Challa later down the road if they wanted to.
Yeah, it does, like
without
my brain obviously. Yeah, my brain obviously goes strategic to MCU. When you introduce a new character like that, and I look their age, I try to envision in the future, and I'm like, oh, here's yet another young character that we could add to, the Young Avengers possibly in the future. They were they 6 years old, or I don't remember the exact age. I want to say it was 6.
Who?
Or hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, who is 6? Who is 6 years old?
Oh, the T'Challa, the kid.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant like you were talking about the other younger. I'm like, the other young Avengers are more like 15 plus. I'm like, which ones are 6?
I thought my microphone was cutting out.
I was like, I think he's a little too young for Young Avengers, but
no. But what I'm saying, like strategically, if Feige knows the Young Avengers is hitting Disney Plus in 4 years, right? The kid could be like 10, maybe couldn't really be on the team, but could be kind of like hanging around Young Avengers campus or something. I don't know.
yeah, it could be. I think it's fine. I think if they go, because there is no Black Panther 3 on the current release schedule yet. I think it could be possibly one of those movies in between the Avengers movies. It could be the first of a Phase 7, really, right? I think there's opportunity there. But yeah, they have an opportunity to I guess, age up or move time forward for this child who, I think is a great way to have a T'Challa without recasting a T'Challa. I think that's a very please everyone kind of thing without, or I guess not offend everyone. It would be the other. Maybe it's not pleasing everyone, but it's not offending everyone throughout this. And I think, even if there isn't some strategy, it is nice to help Shuri show you do have family left in the world. You are not alone, kind of thing. And it was very, very emotional. Very, very good scene throughout there, through that whole thing at the end. I think very, very touching for that character. I am sad that we did not get a post-credit scene or, the oft-rumored Doctor Doom appearance. But it's fine.
It's like a weird it's a weird way to end Phase 4, right? I'm trying to remember what's the sports analogy, because obviously I don't know sports, of when
home run.
You kind of when you kind of bring in like new management or something like that. It's kind of like a rebuilding. I think they call it like a rebuilding season or a rebuilding year, right? It felt like the entirety of Phase 4 was just like a rebuilding year of like, we don't know exactly what we're gonna do. Also, we were cut off at the legs due to a pandemic.
Yeah.
We're trying to do new storytelling on Disney Plus in a different format as well. Things didn't come out in the order we wanted to come out in. Not only were things delayed, we had to move the order of release things around, which kind of changed the stories of some things as well. So, I mean, I think, they did the best with what they had. Phase 4 was never going to be as good as Phase 3 was, because they capped it off absolutely perfectly. I am always so surprised and happy that they were able to get Endgame out just before the world fell apart, right? I mean, just absolutely perfect timing, came out at the perfect time. But I would say, I don't think anyone could really give a whole lot of meaning or strategy behind Phase 4. It was just like, let's just see what we can do, and we'll move forward and restructure in Phase 5 a little bit better.
Well, I think there is strategy here, because if you look at a lot of these movies, they are about new beginnings, introducing new characters, right? While, again, Thor, Black Panther, Doctor Strange are all like sequels, we did meet a lot of new characters through these movies, which is great, because if we were just redoing the same thing over and over again, but we've got to meet these new characters, like you said, after Phase 1, 2, and 3, right? Phase 3 is great because you've had 2 phases to meet all those characters and work up with them. So this one being, as Kevin Feige said, a new introduction phase of new characters, we have 2 more to work with them, and I think that's a great opportunity, judging by everyone they've added to all these TV series, movies as extras, or new characters. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to grow with them over the next 2 things. And by the time Phase 6 comes around, we're like, oh, we really like them now, or hey, they've really come into their own. Because sometimes beginnings are awkward. Introductions are awkward.
Yeah, it's that first day of school, right? We're trying to figure out where to sit still. But once you get more into the semester, you got tons of friends that you're hanging out with.
And we said, they are they have forward thoughts, but maybe they're more reactionary than we initially used to say, right? So they're reacting to how people are meeting these new characters, and I think I'm very, very excited to go down the roads with some of them, especially again, Namor lived, Talokan lived. He has a plan. Again, like you said, it's not necessarily evil, but like he knows what he's doing. He's like, whenever now we owe them, we're gonna use that to our advantage a little bit. Whenever the world, he knows, will come after their vibranium sources, because nobody knows about Talokan existing. So I'm excited to see more of that, and dive into this. Again, like I said, it'd be awesome to have Doctor Doom clash with another nation, right? But it seems like America's going to be the one to kind of go after them with thunderbolts, I believe, down the road. Anything else? Am I forgetting anything throughout this? I think.
I mean, the movie was dense, had a lot going on. There are other things I'm sure I could mention, But I feel like we got to the root of it. We got to the point. The audience knows our opinions, and as most things go, I feel like if you kind of put the two of us in a blender and mixed it up, you'd have a kind of a good down the middle opinion. Of the movie.
And I don't think we're again. I don't think you're bad. I don't think I'm bad. It's just It's different. Like, to sit here and think about it, it's like, this feels like a different movie than everything else. So yeah,
obviously I could recommend the movie. I still believe it is a competent film with great filmmaking, right? And it's just, I wonder. I will always wonder maybe what it would have been, right? Kind of like when you watch The Dark Knight Rises, right? There was always plans to have the Joker and Heath Ledger return. That could have been a totally different film with that,
or the good version of the was it the Rise of Skywalker, whatever that last Star Wars movie was, the good version before J.J. Abrams came back and ruined it.
Or at least a different version. But as you said at the top of the show, they're dealing with extreme circumstances, a loss of a character of great magnitude. They are dealing with a pandemic. They are dealing with the social ramifications of now their lead actor and some of their opinions out there in the real world. So a lot of things to juggle, and I think Ryan Coogler ended up with probably maybe one of the best things that could have came out of it. So
it was an uphill battle regardless which way they were coming out of this one. So
So stay subscribed, listen to the Superhero Slate podcast. I'm sure we'll be updating you weekly as the movie progresses through the box office, see if they can recapture that financial glory domestically for sure for that first film. So stay tuned, stay subscribed, and listen to our news every week.
That's right. So if people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you, man?
Oh, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, maybe. We'll see if it's still around in a while.
I'm taking Twitter out of mine.
And TikTok. And Chris, people want to follow you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, or every week. We're here doing this show every week on superheroslate.com or anywhere else. Podcasts. If people want to know more about the show, where all the other good places other than where they're listeners, where can they find all that stuff at?
Our headquarters, if you wanted to find our undersea domain, that is very easy. You don't need to take a underwater jet stream like the sea turtles in Finding Nemo. You can just head on over to superheroslate.com. It's the best place to find our awesome show notes and our upcoming release calendar. If you're curious when the hell the next Marvel thing is going to come out, when's that next DC dropping, when's Ant-Man and the Wasp coming out, we got an awesome upcoming release calendar, very, very easy to parse and look through. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. You can like and follow us on social media if these platforms even exist into the new year. Even like Facebook laid off like a ton of people. So who knows? The best thing to do is, this is a podcast, right? Best thing to do is just subscribe and follow. So head on over to YouTube. We're there. We're obviously in RSS feeds out there in the world. Find us on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher. I mean, we inject this thing into every podcast platform that'll have us. So you can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. What did you think of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever? What did you think about the Phase 4 as a whole? How would you rank it? What are you looking forward to in Phase 5? Is this a soft or a hard end? Oh no, I shouldn't have said it.
You're starting the show on a soft or hard end, but anyway.
But we is this a hard? No, it's a hard end when I say goodbye. I'm soft ending it right now, I suppose.
You're just dragging
we love our super fans. If you want to be a super fan of the show, it's very easy. All you gotta do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week, folks.
That's right. We will catch you on our regularly scheduled news episode. See you there.
Hard end.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.